Let us continue with continuous charge distribution. We have so far dealt with configurations involving discrete charges. Like, let us take the charge as Q1, Q2, Q3. We have taken discrete value of charges uh, so that the simplifying process will be very easy. But we restrict ourselves to discrete charges so that the mathematical steps are simpler and it does not involve any calculus. But there are some situations where we need to go for continuous charge distribution. For example, let us take a surface. Now let us take this surface, children. Now this is a surface of a charged conductor. So when you consider the surface of a charged conductor, now in this surface it will be impractical to specify charge distribution in terms of the location of microscopic charges. So microscopic charges, in the sense, you cannot go for a surface which has discrete charges. Discrete charges means arrangement of charges here and there. Now one charge will be somewhere, the other charge will be somewhere. So it is individual charges, that is called as discrete charges, and it is a microscopic. I mean, it talks about the location of a microscopic charge. In that case, when you consider a surface, it will be very difficult. So what you have to do is, we need to consider the charge on an element. Now here, what has been done here is, the surface is divided into smaller elements. Now instead of one charge, instead of studying one charge on a surface which is discrete, when you divide the surface into smaller element which consists of continuous charges, then the step is called as continuous charge distribution. So we go for what is called as a surface charge density. Now suppose instead of considering a one charge, now suppose if you divide this surface into small area element. Now let us consider in this small area we have around 4 charges that are continuously distributed. Now here it is very easy to find out what is the surface charge density of this surface, and we can find out for the entire surface. So it will be very easy for us to determine the charge distribution. So this is nothing but, you call it as continuous charge distribution. So with this we define for a surface what is called as surface charge density. Now surface charge density is, now let us take this diagram. Surface charge density is represented by sigma. Okay, sigma is del Q by del S. So what is del Q? Del Q is the number of charges that are present in this small element with respect to the small area. So the area of this element is del S, and the number of charges that is present in that element is del Q. So when you define the surface charge density for a smaller element, surface area element, I can find out the charge distribution for the entire surface. So you call this as continuous charge distribution. So we consider charges to be continually distributed instead of discrete charges. Is it clear, children? So this can be done at different points of the conductor, and it is called as surface charge density. it ignores the quantization of charge and gives out the average of microscopic charge density over an area element del S. The unit of surface charge density is, now here it is charge in the numerator, so the unit of charge is coulomb, and in the denominator it is surface, which is represented as meter square. So what is the SI unit for sigma, which is surface charge density, is coulomb, is equal to coulomb per meter square. Now this is unit. So unit for surface charge density is coulomb per meter square. Now similarly, you can consider for a line charge distribution also. Now line charge distribution, instead of surface charge density, you will call it as linear charge density, which is represented as lambda. So I can write the value of lambda to be del Q by del S. Now here I have considered the surface to be a conductor like this. It's a linear conductor, it's a line charge. So if in this line charge, if I consider a small area element, now this is line, this is surface, and this is volume. So in this, when you consider a small area element, again for this length del L, I can find out the charge distribution for the entire conductor. Similar, so you represent linear charge density as del Q by del L. Again, the unit for this lambda is, unit for linear charge density, lambda is, unit is, again numerator you have charge, denominator you have length, which is measured in meters. So the unit for linear charge density is measured as coulomb per meter, right? So where, what is del L here? Del L here is the small line element on the macroscopic scale, and it also includes a large number of microscopic constituents. The number of charges inside it is the charge that is contained in the line element, children. This is with respect to linear charge density. Next, we'll move on to volume charge density. Volume charge density is represented as rho, which is given by del Q by del V. Again, you take a surface here. Now divide this into a small volume element. Here it is area element, here it is line charge element, and here you consider it as a small volume element. So rho is del Q by del V, and again what will be the unit here, children? It is again coulomb by volume is meter cube. So the unit for rho is coulomb per meter cube. So all these are used to find out the electric field due to a continuous system of charge distribution. To find out the electric field, we can go for the formula that we used to calculate the electric field for discrete charges. Now you know the formula for electric field as, what is the formula, children? Again, I am coming out with the formula for electric field again. So it is Q by 4 pi epsilon naught R square into unit vector. So this formula can be used to find out the electric field for a continuous system of charges also, right? Now let us take a continuous charge distribution in space, now which has a charge density rho. Refer to this diagram, children, rho. Now let us choose a convenient origin. Now the origin is O here, and the position vector of any point in the charge distribution is R. Now let us take a small element here. Now with respect to origin, R represents the position vector, right? Now the charge density in this particular volume will be keeping on changing. It is not the same. It will be varying according to the element what you choose, right? So hence the position vector also will be changing. So it is a function of R, right? Now divide this volume into very small elements. So this is what we have done here. So the entire volume is divided into small volume elements whose size is given as del V. So this is the division. Now you divide it into small volume elements. So del V. So what is the charge in this volume element? Charge in this volume element is given as Q is equal to rho into del V, right? How many number of charges are there in this small volume into the density? So that gives the amount of charge that is present in the charge element. Are you able to understand? Now, I am going to consider a point P. Now look at this point P, children. Where is this point P? This point P is outside. Now let us consider the position vector of this point P is taken as R. So R represents the position vector. Now I am going to find out what is the electric field. Again I will go for this formula. E is equal to Q by 4 pi epsilon naught R square into unit vector. So substitute here for the value of Q. So when I substitute the value of Q, again it is 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught. Substitute for Q as rho into del V divided by R. Let us state the position vector here. They have taken it as R dash square into R dash unit vector. So because R dash represents the position vector of the element to the point P. So let me take this as R dash. So I have substituted here. Is it clear, children? Now this is for a small area element, right? Now I have to find out what is the total electric field due to this charge distribution. So this is for a small area element, right? Now if I wanted to find out the total electric field, I'll go for the superposition principle. So I will add the area of smaller elements like this to get the area of the whole volume. So this formula will be rearranged as E is equal to 1 by 4 pi epsilon naught summation of all the small volume element. Now this is for one volume element. Now you will divide the entire volume into small elements. So the summation of all the small elements. That's why I write here summation of all volume elements. Here I have del into rho V by R dash square into R dash unit vector. Is it clear, children? So using Coulomb's law and also the superposition principle, we can determine the electric field for any charge distribution. Okay, whether it is a discrete charge distribution or whether it is continuous charge distribution or it is partly discrete or partly continuous. So go through this concept and you need to be very familiar with the formula. As far as this topic is concerned, you need to be very familiar with the formulas for linear charge density. You need to be very familiar for surface charge density, volume charge density, and the units for this. Okay. Now let us move on to the next topic called Gauss law. Now before we go on to this, I would like you to suggest to go through the topic of electric flux. Now we have already discussed about electric flux. Electric flux is nothing but number of electric field lines crossing unit area, which is called as flux. So Gauss law's dependence is mainly based on electric flux, right? So please go through the topic of electric flux and the points that we discussed in that topic to be very familiar with Gauss law. Clear, children? So let us move on to Gauss law. So this is one of the application of electric flux. We are going to talk about much more in detail with this Gauss law, right? With much more applications we are going to learn, right? Okay. Now consider a sphere. Now this is a sphere. Now let us consider the total flux through a sphere of radius. Now what is the radius of this sphere is r, and this will be the same, right? Now what I have done in this diagram is the sphere is divided into a small element. I have taken a small element of the sphere. I am going to calculate the electric flux for this small area element, right? Now this is the surface del S, and there is an electric field which is moving radially outward. Look at the direction of the electric field here, children. It is radially outward. And you consider a small area element which is del S, right? So what is the flux through this area element? I will write the flux through this area element as del phi equal to E dot del S. This is the formula for flux. We have already read this formula in electric flux. Hope you should remember this, right? Okay, now what is electric field formula? Electric field formula is Q by 4 pi epsilon naught R square into R, let me write it here, R unit vector dot. Now this is a small area element, so I will write it as del S. So I have taken a sphere. I am going to find out the electric flux for the entire sphere. To do that, let me take the small area. Let me take a small area element of this type, and the electric field due to this is outward. So what is the electric flux at this small area element is given as Q by 4 pi epsilon naught R square into R unit vector del S. Right. Now this unit vector R is along the radius vector, and the normal to the sphere at every point is along the radius vector, right? So look at the area element and the unit vector. They have the same direction. Now here, this is area, children. Hope you should remember area and area vector. This is area. Area vector will be normal. Similarly, electric field is also radially outward. So the area vector and the electric vector are in the same direction. So flux will be Es cos theta. Theta will be 0. So you have flux to be E dot S. Okay, all these concepts we have discussed in electric flux. What is area vector, all these concepts we have discussed. So you have to remember this, otherwise you will not understand this. So there are two arrows here. You should understand why these two arrows are. One is the area vector. The other one is electric field vector. Both act in the same direction, which makes the value of theta to be 0. Okay, ma? Now I write for flux equal to Q by 4 pi epsilon naught R square into, for a small area, del S, where unit vector takes a value of 1, right? Now I am going to determine the total flux. How do I find out the total flux? I will add all the values of the smaller area elements to get the value of total flux, which can be written as, again, where is my cursor? Yes, it should be here. Del psi equal to summation of all the area element, del S equal to Q by 4 pi epsilon naught R square del S. Okay. So what about the value of R here? Now the area element of the sphere, when I take this area element of the sphere, the distance from the center is taken as R. So wherever you take the area element, if you take it is here, or if you take it at this position, if you take it this position, this value of R will remain the same. Yes or no? So it will remain the same. So I will write once again the value of psi to be Q by 4 pi epsilon naught R square will be the same. So I take it out first. So here del psi equal to Q by 4 pi epsilon naught R square, summation of all the elements into which alone I am going to find out, del S. Now when I summate this, I will get the entire surface, which is, you will represent it as psi now, which is equal to Q by 4 pi epsilon naught R square into S. Clear? Now this is for this equation is for the small surface area. This is for the entire surface area of the sphere. Right, I am going to substitute what is the area of the sphere. What is the area of the sphere? Area of the sphere is 4 pi R square, right? So it is Q by 4 pi epsilon naught R square into 4 pi R square. So this entire term gets cancelled here. So it is 4 pi R square gets cancelled. So here is the formula for flux, which is Q by epsilon naught. This is called as Gauss law. It states that the total flux of a area is equal to 1 by epsilon naught times the charge enclosed in the surface. This is a very, very important topic. Now, based on Gauss law, we are going to talk about various applications. Okay. So, this is Gauss law. The electric flux through a closed surface is equal to 1 by epsilon naught times the net charge enclosed in the surface. Okay. Now, I am going to say that the total electric flux in the sense the number of electric field lines passing through an area, it is called as electric flux. Now based on this formula what we read, psi is equal to Q by epsilon naught, we are going to talk about the electric flux through a closed surface is going to be 0 if no charge is enclosed by the surface. Now let us consider a surface. Now here I have taken a cylindrical surface, children. Okay. Now the axis of the cylindrical surface, look at this. This is the axis of the cylindrical surface, and there is an electric field that is given. So how the axis of the cylindrical surface and electric field are? They are parallel to each other. Okay, ma? Now I'm going to find out what is the electric flux through this surface, and I'm also going to say that the flux through this surface is going to be 0. So how I'm going to do that? Let us see here. Now the axis of the cylindrical surface is very much parallel to the electric field. So what will be the flux through this area is, flux will be, I have marked 3 parts here. Okay. So this is part 1, part 2 and part 3. Now part 1 and 2 are the area of the circular section of the cylindrical surface, and here this is the cylindrical part. So I'm going to I'm going to find out the value of the flux at this part and this part and the third part, sum up everything together to find out the total flux. Clear? Now first we'll go to this third part, children. Now in this third part, let us take a small area element. Now if I take a small area in this surface, now the area vector will be exactly normal, right? So here, how do I draw the area vector? When I draw a normal, it is always normal, right? Okay, now this is the area vector, which is ds vector. Am I right? So what is the angle between here, the electric field and ds vector? Theta is going to be 90 degree, and flux will be, when you substitute in the formula flux, psi is equal to es cos theta. Theta is 90, cos 90, 0, and you will have no flux here. So with respect to the third part, the flux is 0. Now let us come to this first and second part. Now in this first and second part, now here I am going to consider a small area. If I consider a small area here, the area vector will be along this direction and E vector is in the same direction. Here theta will be 0. And here also, when you consider a small area element, let me draw a small area here also, children. Now what will be the area vector? It is again outside, ds vector, right? And again the electric field is opposite the direction, so theta is anti-parallel 180, that is also equal to -1. So here psi 1 is equal to minus E into S1, and to this side it is E into S2. So what will be the surface area? It is the same here, S1, sorry, here it should be S2. So S1 is equal to S2 is equal to S. So what will be the total flux here also? So the total flux here also is 0. So thus, whenever you find the net electric flux through a closed surface. Now whenever we talk about Gauss law, we need to consider a closed surface, which is very, very important. The closed surface is also known as Gaussian surface. So in a closed surface, the net flux will always be 0. So you can conclude that the total charge contained in a closed surface is 0. Clear? Now, based on all these things, we are going to have some important points regarding Gauss law. Now, all these points are also discussed in the textbook, children. I'll just go through the important points alone. Just go through it and try to understand. So, the first point is Gauss law is true for any closed surface, and now the term q on the right side. So here psi is equal to q by epsilon naught. This term, which is q, it talks about the charges enclosed by the surface. Okay, and it is not that the charges are only to be inside the surface. The charges can also be outside the surface. So we will be able to find out the electric field due to the charges which is outside the surface also. Okay, to find out that, you need to find out a Gaussian surface. So when you apply Gauss law, you need to go for the Gaussian surface, which is very, very important. Okay, and the Gaussian surface helps us to understand the, or to calculate the value of electrostatic field, and Gauss law is based on Coulomb's law also. So all these points are discussed in your textbook. I just explained the gist of it, children. Please go through the points that are given there in the textbook and go through the concept what we learned today. Okay, see you tomorrow, children.